You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. This call is from
Cedric Dean,
an inmate at a federal prison. This call is being recorded and is subject to monitoring. Hang up to decline the call or to accept. Dial 5 now.
This is my testimony. I was born Cedric Lamont Dean, June 14, 1972. The morality that I got today came from the church. My mama, Betty Dean Baker, used to take me to church. New Hope Missionary Baptist Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. I used to sing in the choir, and I learned about the Lord at an early age. By the time I was 10, I was reciting Easter speeches. And the First Lady of the church, Frances Moore, told me God is going to use you someday. I heard it with my ears, but not with my heart. I knew she just wanted to see me succeed. By the time I was 12, I accepted the Lord into my life and got baptized. I went down a dry center and came up a wet one. 13 years old, the devil stole my soul. Never could I have imagined Satan could be so cold. I was baptized again, this time as a thug. Started running the streets, and the streets started running me. But I had a praying mama who never gave up on me. By the time I was 14, I had robbed my first drug dealer. I began to walk around with big gold chains around my neck, gold watches and bracelets around my wrists, gold and diamond rings on my fingers. Things began to change. Things began to change every day. Satan sent his soldiers at me. The devil was determined to get me on his team. See, I loved the streets. I was getting money and girls, and I loved the gangster glam that said, I fear you. I didn't know that God is the only one to be feared. I didn't know it then. When I turned 15, I shot a man doing a drug deal. By the time I was 16, I was behind bars in the same cell blocks with adult robbers and killers. After serving 2,009 days, I was trained to be a goon. I was mean Dean by then. Things had gotten really mean. Then I got out at 21 and was introduced to crack. Satan sent his soldiers at me. Next thing you know, I was selling crack all day, every day. Crack in the morning, crack late at night. Then it was back to robbing drug dealers. Back to running around with the same people that got me locked up the first time. Then one day I was introduced to Flex. Flex is fake crack, made with candle wax, baking soda, and flour. This was a new hustle. All hustles are spirits. This Flex spirit became a money pit. I began to soldier for Satan, and I did everything a frontline soldier was expected to do. And I'm not saying this to glorify the game. I'm just letting you know that Satan will put you to shame, and you won't have nobody to blame, for real. I lasted on the streets for 11 months. Then I became a dead man walking. The feds gave me life plus 5 years. When I was asked if I understood what that meant, I said, if I die and come back to life, I still have 5 years to do. Satan sent his soldiers at me. But I had a praying mama who never gave up on me. For real. One time when I was at a church service in United States Penitentiary, I met a man who was with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. His name was Chris. I didn't know this then, but I was a true soldier for Christ. Not only was he a man of God, but he was a man of morality. See, God knows how to really turn your situation around. So we began to be friends, and he began to minister to me, and I began to learn what God's plan was for me through Chris. But Chris introduced me to his partner in ministry named Mike, and we began to get close like brothers. Chris and Mike were doing prison ministry, and I was ministering in prison. I was teaching GED classes and Leaders Breed Leaders seminars for staff and inmates. I had stopped faking it to make it. Chris and Mike taught me how to make it without faking it. I began living for God full time, not just part time like I was. I knew only Jesus could free me. One night while Mike was returning from ministry alone, his car accidentally went over a cliff. Chris told me Mike was dead. Chris didn't know what to do. I was so confused. Satan sent his soldiers at me. But I had a praying mama who never gave up on me. And I knew that I had to keep it real with Jesus. For real. It wasn't long after that when I was talking to Chris on the phone. And Chris was telling me that I was the only person he knew who could minister like Mike. At that time, God had reduced my life sentence to 35 years. I knew I was going to be free someday. I knew Jesus would set me free. I promised Chris, when that day came, we would continue what him and Mike started. This has been more of a metamorphosis for me. I have mutated into the man I am. It's been a metaphysical mutation. Physically, it's been nearly 3 decades, over 2,000 days in state prisons and 8,000 days in the feds. And I've been struggling too. You get close to death and start wondering if God is going to intervene. When he does, you still worry about when you get free. Because if you don't work on the street, you don't eat. Toilet paper ain't free out there like it is in here. And when you get sick on the street,
This call is from a federal prison.
costs more than a $2 pay fee. I've spent almost all of my life in prison. So there's a lot on the I don't know about. But I will tell you this. When it comes to writing books and teaching classes in prison, about prison, I know what I'm talking about. I'm an expert, and I know what to say. I've been in maximum security and medium security. I've seen death diminish to delusions of life. I've been that dead man walking. So you better believe me when I say Jesus is real. I'm just glad he saved me. I'm just glad he set me free. And if you didn't know who Jesus is, you better ask somebody. My mama told me something. When I first got sentenced to life plus 5 years, she said, the devil is a liar. God gonna bring you out of there one day. She had the faith for the woman who said, if I could just touch the hem of his garment. She told me all I needed was faith the size of a mustard seed, and God would move that mountain. I maintained that faith, and he moved that mountain. November 7th, 2017 is Liberation Day. I will be free. And Chris and my brother in Christ, Sean Stats, and me will continue the ministry where Chris and Mike started. You better believe me when I say mean Dean, because I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. So friends, family, and fellow Americans, I return to you all in the name of peace and morality for all. I return to you not as a thug, but as a peacemaking thugologist. Your prayers have made it possible for me to be free. I therefore commit the remaining years of my life to Christ and my community. I love you all.